Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark Easton, Deputy CFO, Office of the Undersecretary of Defense, and one of this year's Technical Committee co-chairs.
Good afternoon. This is a fantastic training event. Let me turn around and look. Have you ever wished that you could spend a little bit more time with the people you love? Or could you use some simple ideas for stressing out less often and having more fun, and hopefully not too much fun, so we'll be ready for training? Or do you ever feel busier than a beaver with one tooth? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you're in for a real treat today. Jason Kotecki is a talented artist, and his presentation today, with his colorful paintings, which I think that you saw a little bit, his art has been collected and licensed all over the world, and his insights have been featured in publications like Inc. and Women's Day. As an author, Jason has written 5 books, including Penguins Can't Fly and 39 Other Rules That Don't Exist. We want to check how many people ate their dessert first, which has been translated, these books have been translated into languages that even he can't read. When Jason is not helping us to escape adulthood, he enjoys all things Star Wars, pretending to be a superhero, and spending time with his beautiful wife and 3, as he self-described, weird kids. Please join me in welcoming from Madison, Wisconsin, artist, speaker, and eater of sugar-laden cereal, Jason Kotecki.
So we were making lunch, and my daughter Lucy, who was 3 at the time, was eager to help. She's a good little helper in the kitchen. We were making grilled cheese sandwiches. She asked my wife if she could help. Mom, can I help? Let me help. So Kim, my wife, gives her the butter knife, says, why don't you butter the bread for me? She gives her one instruction. She says, just butter one side. So she did. She nailed it, right? Now, I don't know if anyone out here can relate to when you give instructions that you think are pretty clear and they come back not quite how you intended, right? I'm not going to argue that this is the best way to make a grilled cheese sandwich. I'm pretty sure it's not. But I will argue probably none of us in here would have even considered this as an option. That's why you laugh. That's what humor is something that takes us by surprise, right? So you've heard this question often, right? Why do we do things this way? Sadly, what is the response that we always hear? Because we've always done them this way, right? So that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. This idea that you can follow best practices or you can be innovative, but you can't do both. We are so enamored with best practices, we don't even stop to consider that maybe there's a better one out there. I am convinced. Remember when you were a little kid and you would do something and your mom or dad would yell at you and you would say, well, Jimmy's doing it. And they'd say what? Well, if Jimmy jumped off of a bridge, would you? Right? I'm convinced if you said, well, it is the best practice. People are like, well, okay then. I can't argue with that, right? So a question for you. Are there any artists out here? Isn't the A, one of the A's, an AGA artist? No, it's not. No, I'm kidding. That was what was weird. As I was preparing for this, Association of Government Accountants, and they said, but don't call them accountants. Whatever you do, don't call them accountants. They're They're financial professionals. I'm like, okay. But what I really realized when I did the research is I'm like, okay, well, what do they do? And when I figure out what they do, I'm like, oh, I get it. They're like the behind-the-scenes people who actually make stuff happen, right? You're making the country better. You're helping feed people. You're serving the homeless. You're honoring our vets, protecting our environment, making our country better. I'm like, oh, well, I can talk to these people. I get that, right? But I'm curious if you ever have thought of yourself as an artist. There might be a few of you out there. But for the rest of you, I just have to ask you, what happened? Because you used to be, if you were 5 years old, and I asked you if there are any artists in the room, everyone's hand would have shot up in the air, right? And that's the case when we're in kindergarten and first grade and second grade. But then once we get to third, fourth, fifth grade, hands start to come down. By the time we're seniors in high school, only about 5% of us would still have our hands in the air, because now we've associated that being an artist is someone who can paint or draw or sing or dance or something like that. What I want us to do is challenge that assumption. I want us to look a little bit more at the idea of being artists, because as we look forward into the future, which is very uncertain, there are many challenges, right? There's a lot of problems we're facing. If they were really easy problems to solve, we wouldn't have to really think that hard about them. But in order to solve the big ones, that requires creativity. That requires the thinking of an artist. And it has nothing to do with picking up paints or a crayon or drawing a straight line or something like that. Picasso was right. He said that all children are artists. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up. There are probably people out here who have said the words, "Oh, I'm not one of those creative types." That's actually false. Brené Brown says there's no such thing as creative people and non-creative people. There are people who use their creativity and those who don't. So, although I am an artist, an author, and a speaker, I've realized that what I really am is a professional reminderer. That's literally what I do for a living, folks. I remind people of stuff they already know. But I've come to realize how important of a job it is, because most of the time we're in day-to-day survival mode, just trying to keep our heads above water. And sometimes we lose track and forget some of the most important things that we knew so well when we were younger. This is one of my favorite pieces. Any guesses what this one might be called? Holy guacamole. That's a phrase I use a lot, especially when I'm overwhelmed. Holy guacamole, how am I going to deal with this one, right? There's always something, some curveball that life is throwing us. You know, budgets cut, do more with less, dealing with coworkers who are not always very cooperative. There's always a chance to say holy guacamole, right? Here's the challenge. As we move forward, as we try to create a future and a country and a world that is even better than it is right now, we are facing an enemy that most of us don't even realize. This enemy is so powerful, but we don't even know what it is. We don't realize it. It's not as famous as Darth Vader, but it's probably way more powerful. It's so powerful, it can turn us from this into this. We start out young, enthusiastic, full of energy, passion, wonder, curiosity, and as we get older, many of us morph into something that looks more like this. What has this power over us? What is this enemy that we are up against? It is this, adultitis. Now, most of you probably never heard of this before. That's okay. That's why I'm here. I speak at a lot of different conferences, healthcare conferences. People who should know what this is, they don't, right? Anyone with any sort of a science background, you might know that adultitis literally means swelling of the adult. Which is about right. If you're walking around with too much adult, you're going to have problems, all right? So let me start at the beginning with a definition. What exactly is adultitis? We'll get all on the same page here. Adultitis is a common condition occurring in people between the ages of 21 and 121, marked by chronic illness, mild depression, super high stress level, general fear of change, and in extreme cases, the inability to smile. Onset can be accelerated by external responsibilities or a boring work life. Generally, patients with this condition are not fun to be around. This is the official medical definition of adultitis, translated from Latin, and it's very, very serious, okay? There are some warning signs. Our website, which, by the way, the little cards on the table with the eat dessert first, that's my fault, right? I'm responsible. There's a thing on there that says, I think it should say escape adulthood. If you go there, you can find an intake to find out what stage of adultitis you have. It's totally free. But I at least wanted to give you some warning signs here. How do I know if I have adultitis? One telltale sign is if you're the type of person whose cell phone has become a body part. I think this is the first Bluetooth phone, right? Everything is always large and clunky when it first starts, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Like the Apple headphones, you can't even see them anymore. They're like invisible. If this is how you park, all right, that's a big red flag right there. And this next one is really easy. I don't even have to explain it. I just have to show it, and how you react tells me everything I need to know. Okay, good. I'm glad Glad we're not too far gone, all right? This is a good sign. If you're not smiling or at least grinning a little bit, you might have some adultitis there, all right? So here's the challenge. Like I said, adultitis, we know nobody's heard of it. We know it's sneaky, it's stealth, it's very undercover. So I wanted to give you a story from my life to give you an example of how adultitis likes to sneak its way in. All right, this is Lucy. This is my daughter Lucy. Mentioned her in the first story. She is 9 years old now, but in this picture she was just a few hours old. And I got to tell you, when my wife and I found out that we were pregnant, we were super excited. By the way, ladies, do you love how men use that pronoun we, referring to pregnancy? What is that about exactly? I'll tell you right now, like, what is my role in the situation? It's kind of not fair to say we, my role, 4 minutes. 5 if it was a good day, all right? So to say we, comparing that to 9 months, come on, that's a little much. I'll be the first to say it. I think the guys, after the fun part, our job, we're wingmen. We're the support staff, right? And I took my role as wingman very seriously. I went to all of the appointments with Kim. I ordered a bunch of books on Amazon about what to expect, and I read some of them. But I was super excited to be a dad, and sometimes when I would speak, I couldn't not tell people that I was going to be a dad, and it turns out it's a really cheap and easy way to get a round of applause from people. But ultimately, not a good move. Because what happens is then everyone and their grandmother comes up to you after the program to give you their advice on parenting. And it's all over the board, right? Do this, don't do that, feed them this, make sure you don't feed them that. And some of it's conflicting, it's very overwhelming. But there was one piece of advice that I got over and over and over again. It didn't matter if I was here in Florida or in California, New York, wherever, I would hear at least one person say this. It'd say, enjoy every minute, because it goes by so fast. So I see some nodding heads out there, probably from experience. I didn't even have that experience, and I was like, oh yeah, I know, right? Days are long, years are short, aren't they? And I remember thinking, I don't know a lot of stuff, but I know this. This is what I talk about. It's what I write about. I got this. Don't worry about me. Right. You see, even professional reminderers need to be reminded once in a while. So it was about 3 months into this whole parenting adventure. Kim and I are at home. Kim is on the couch taking care of Lucy. I am in this glider baby shower gift. It's like a rocking chair that we had gotten. And I have my laptop open, and I have a list of things I desperately need to get accomplished. And I am focused, checking emails, sending things out. Lo and behold, a miracle happened. And I actually finished my list more quickly than I thought I would, which is a miracle, right? We never get anything done when we think we're supposed to. We get disrupted, interrupted, things get pushed off, right? But today I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy. Here's my chance to be super dad, super husband. Close the laptop, turn to Kim. I said, Kim, if you want me to watch Lucy, I have everything I need to get done. I can watch her. You can go take a shower. You can take a nap. She was gone. Do you remember the Roadrunner cartoons? It was like, beep, beep, puff of smoke. She's gone. Lucy's in my arms. Bottle appears out of nowhere. Does this say Acme on it? That is so weird. And I'm sitting here in this rocking chair with my 3-month-old little girl, and she finishes the bottle and she falls asleep. And I'm thinking, this is the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. I can't believe how cute she is. I can't believe how small she is. How do they make fingernails that small? China, pretty sure. And she's beautiful. She even smells good right now. Like this is as good as it gets right here. And I'm like, I could just sit here all day long and it'd be just fine with me. And it's been a minute. See, then my productive side of my brain started to get into gear. And I start looking around, getting antsy, look at the couch, look at my laptop, look at the couch, look at my laptop, and I think, well, if she's just going to sleep, she could sleep just as easily over there on the couch. Maybe I'll put her down and get some more emails checked. And as I reach for the laptop, it hit me, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. I'm missing out on the best stuff. Now, am I saying you can't try to get work done when kids are sleeping? No, that's why God invented naps. I'm not saying you have to be with your kids every second of the day, but if you remember what I said, I had everything I needed to get done. Here's the dirty little secret, and I bet no one knows this better than you. There's always another email to be checked. There's always some message that needs to be returned. There's always some meeting that needs to be organized or some paperwork that needs to be filed. There's probably a drawer in your house right now that you can't close all the way because it needs to be dejunked, right? There's always something. Now, fortunately for me, I had been given this advice from random strangers. And what was interesting is I realized this little truth, and I hate to have to do this after having such a nice lunch. It's like, feels like I shouldn't even mention this, but as a professional reminder, I am obligated by law to remind everyone in here that every single one of us is going to die with stuff on our to-do list. That freaks some of you out, right? I know some of you have the GTD thing down, you're all organized. Some of you may have the same sickness I have. Have you ever done this? You do something, it wasn't actually on your to-do list, but you write it on there just so you can immediately cross it off. That can't be healthy. I don't know what that's about. But we are so driven to accomplish things, to get things done. And like I said, fortunately, I had been given this advice that I didn't ask for. Somehow it stuck in my stubborn, stupid little brain. And I put the laptop back, and I brought Lucy back into my arms. When I was able to let go of the idea that I was just sitting there doing nothing, not being productive at all, when I realized I was not, in fact, doing nothing. I was able to relax and be present in that moment. And I sat there for another hour with my little girl. And as I was sitting there, I was daydreaming a little bit, imagining 20 or 30 or, if I'm lucky, 40 years from now on her wedding day. When I'm walking her down the aisle or having that father-daughter dance at the reception, I realized I was never in a million years going to remember what I checked off my to-do list that day. She's only 9 years old, and I don't remember what email was so urgent I needed to hurry up and put her down so I could go check it. But at the time, it seemed like a pretty big deal. And that, my friends, is what adultitis is all about. It gets us focused on the busy, urgent, noisy things, while the most important things in our lives happen under our noses every single day. Now the news gets worse, because not only are we facing adultitis, but adultitis has a whole slew of weapons that it uses against us in the form of rules that don't exist. Now, I know there are many, many rules and regulations that you are required to follow. I imagine some of you wonder if people just wake up in the morning and be like, okay, how can we make their life even worse, right? What new things, what new hoops can we have them jump through, right? I'm not talking about the rules that actually have consequences if we break them, the things that we have to do. I'm not suggesting you don't pay your taxes or disobey speed limit signs. I'm talking about this whole other batch of rules we add into things, right? Here's Exhibit A. I don't know if any of you have ever seen one of these before. This is a chocolate-covered sprinkled donut after my daughter Lucy is finished with it. There is no more value, no more ROI in this donut for her. I realized, I took this picture, she was, 3 something, and I was sort of overwhelmed with parenting on this particular day. I'm just like, I knew I'd have to teach my daughter manners and how to ride a bike and tie her shoe. Never occurred to me that I'd also have to teach her the proper way to eat a freaking donut. These kids know nothing, and I'm sort of overwhelmed and frustrated. And then I took the picture and I realized that, you know what, the donut eating police did not in fact break down our door and revoke my daughter's donut eating license for doing it wrong. And I thought, well, maybe this is a rule that doesn't exist, that there's a certain way you're supposed to eat a donut. I don't know how we were supposed to eat the dessert we had today. It's like you pick up the part, you just kind of you eat the bottom first. It's very confusing to me. I don't know. But I don't know if there is a certain way, right? And I'm like, if this is a rule that doesn't exist, admittedly a very obscure one, how many more are there? And that's what inspired me to write this book, to dig deeper into some of these rules that don't exist. The book covers about 40 of them. which the reality is there's about 40 million, because the more you notice, the more you see, the more you look for them, the more they're everywhere. They're everywhere. So there are things like this. Thou shalt not eat dessert first. Pop quiz. How many people actually ate dessert first, even if it was just a bite? All right, my table here is the champions because I made them, but no, but that, like, again, if we were 5, would you really have needed permission, or would you have just been like, it'd be gone? You'd be like, where'd your dessert go? Oh, I didn't get one, right? That's probably what would happen, right? But it's funny, that's just an example of one of the things that we would have loved to do as a kid. Now, am I saying you should eat dessert first for every meal? Yes. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is we're so conditioned to not even consider it anymore, right? We're so in this mindset of living by this rule. Probably the most controversial rule in the book, particularly for anyone who is married or has been in a relationship for a long time. If I were to suggest that after this conference, when you go home and you get back together and have a nice dinner, and then it's time for bed, maybe you slip into bed and, I don't know, try something a little bit different, like swap sides. Oh, that freaks people out. I can't. It's weird. I've been married for 18 years. I never once had a conversation about which side of the bed I should sleep in, and when I'm in a hotel by myself, guess which side of the bed I sleep on. It's like and then it's all weird. You need like a compass because like the bread's on a different wall and the clock is over there. It's very, very confusing. But people like freak out at the thought of possibly swapping sides of the bed. So how do we break free from these rules that don't exist? How do we break free from the clutches of adultitis? Because in order to do our jobs better, in order to create lives that we're proud of, we have to look for these rules that don't exist. In order to really innovate, you have to look for rules that don't exist and break them. That's where all the progress is made. There are 3 things that we can be good at. We can practice at. These are all things that artists naturally do, all things that we naturally did at one point of our lives. Some of us still do them, but we never actually get perfect at them. We're never really experts at them. So it's good to keep this in mind. Seeing with new eyes is the first one. So where I live in Wisconsin during the summertime, you see this, adults are conditioned to freak out, like, there's an army of weeds that have taken over my yard. Got to call the weed guy, take care of this. A child sees the exact same yard. What do they see? They see wishes. It's literally the exact same thing, 2 completely different ways of looking at it, right? One of the best ways I can give you of how to see the rules that don't exist, because if they were so obvious, we'd notice them more easily, right? They're so ingrained in us, it's hard to see them. But one way to do this is to take advantage of the newbies, right? We got the millennials coming in, even if it's just a brand new person to your organization who hasn't been around. Here's what normally happens, right? We want to orient them as quickly as possible so that they know exactly what they're supposed to do, how we do things around here, get them up to speed, right? There's a brief window of time that is available to us if we empower them to ask questions, to ask why. That doesn't last very long, and it can be kind of annoying. When I was early in my business, I had a couple team members, including my younger brother, and one of the things that we would do at every meeting is I had 4 cards with the word why printed on them. And the why person would be given the stack of cards, and every meeting would be a different person, and their job was to use all 4 of those cards in the course of the meeting. So anytime something came up, we're discussing someone, they would say, why are we doing that? So annoying, right? And it is, because you don't have time to explain every little thing. But here's the thing. If you empower the new people to ask why, and then you take the time to answer, one of 2 things will happen. Either you will explain it, and then they will understand it. They will know why we do this. Then you won't ever have to tell them again because they'll get it. It's really hard to just do something because someone said to do something, but when you understand the reason why, they're more likely to do it well and do it right. The second thing that could happen is you go to start to explain why you do it, and you can't come up with a good reason. Or you think, well, 5 years ago we had this one thing that we were doing, and so we incorporated this, and blah, blah, blah. And then you realize that thing that initiated it in the first place no longer exists, making this thing that you do no longer relevant at all. Bingo, you have just stumbled upon a rule that doesn't exist. You don't have to do it this way because you've always done it that way. But that's the hard part. As a leader, is actually encouraging people to ask why and being confident enough to answer the question, realizing you're making your team better and you're also on the lookout for rules that don't exist. This is a portrait that I drew of my youngest daughter, Virginia. It's upside down for a reason. When I'm drawing a portrait, when I get to a certain stage, I turn the picture upside down and the reference photo upside down. My wife saw this. She's like, "What are you doing? This is so weird. I've never seen anyone do this. What's the point?" Well, there's a really good reason I do this. It's because when I'm drawing a portrait, sometimes my assumptions take over. Sometimes I start drawing an eye the way I think an eye is supposed to look, not the way this particular person's eye is supposed to look. I'll draw an ear the way I think an ear is supposed to look, or a mouth the way I think a mouth is supposed to look, and it doesn't quite look right. Something's off. But when I turn the picture upside down, it tricks my brain. And now I'm not looking at it as a face anymore. I'm looking at it as shapes and lines and value and form. And then I can focus on that. I can focus on seeing what I really see. And then the portrait ends up looking a heck of a lot better. We can do the same thing. What we have to do is we have to turn things upside down. We have to swap roles with people once in a while. Maybe it's someone on the team and we do their job for a day while they try to do ours, right? Or we get on the front lines and figure out how things really work. Then the assumptions that we have fall away and we get a more accurate representation. If you live with someone, if you're the spouse, you've been married for a while, usually we divvy up household chores in a certain way. Someone does shopping, cooking, cutting grass, cleaning, laundry. It's divided in some way. Usually one person is responsible for that task. What if you swap those roles for a week? All of a sudden your assumptions are gone. All of a sudden you see what it really takes to do that job day in and day out. And your perspective changes. You start to be able to see with new eyes. Remember good old Bob? This happy accidents, this happy afro, right? He would say, right, something gets messed up, and I can relate to this as an artist. So I'm painting something, and my brush slips, or I smudge something I just spent an hour working on, and I just want to kind of like throw it away and start over, because I ruined it. But Bob would say, no, that's a happy accident. Maybe there's supposed to be a little bush there. Maybe that sky is supposed to be that color, and I will tell you what, it is uncanny, 99 times out of 100. When I lean into it and embrace the idea that maybe this is a happy accident, and I ask this question, now that this has happened, what does this make possible? It's one of the best questions you could ever ask yourself. Whenever something bad happens, frustrating happens, now that this has happened, because I can be mad about it, I can complain about it, you're not going to change it, it's happened. But now that it's happened, what does this make possible? For this guy, he now has the chance to get the SUV of his dreams, now that minivan is toast, right? There's always an opportunity in every single problem, but we have to be willing to see it. We have to be willing to look for it by seeing with new eyes. The next skill I want to talk about is the idea of tinkering. And I'm going to go into this a little bit later in my breakout, but I wanted to at least give you a little bit of flavor of what I'm talking about. If you look it up in the dictionary, to tinker is to repair, adjust, or work with things in an unskilled or experimental manner. Any guess what the two most important words in that definition are? Unskilled and experimental, right? Now, when my daughter, Virginia, learned how to walk, and she let go of that couch for the first time to take that first step, it'll surprise no one here that with that first step, she fell. Not a big surprise. Also, probably not surprising to when she got back up, she didn't look around the room and say, oh, you guys guys are so talented at walking. I could never hope to be as good at walking as you are. How did you get so good at that? You're so talented. I'll just wait and figure out what my special skill is, and I'll let you guys do the walking from now on, all right? It's ridiculous. When my daughter Lucy learned how to ride a bike, she didn't race around the block her first time. She fell, she skinned her knees. So did you. What happened to us? Why, as adults, do we think we have to be perfect at something on our first try? Why do we think we have to know exactly how something is going to turn out before we're willing to take a first step? That's not how it works. In order to innovate, in order to solve some of our biggest problems, we have to be willing to tinker. We have to be willing to make small, tiny experiments and see what happens, and let go of the baggage that comes if it doesn't work out. Because if it doesn't work out, if it flops, if it fails, that doesn't make us a failure. It just means that didn't work. Let's try something new. One way to practice this is to start doing things that don't matter. Some people, mixing up the cereal in the morning, that's normal. For other people, they're like, oh, I can't do that. Are you crazy? You do know they sell them in separate boxes for a reason. Wherever you are on the risk spectrum, start there, right? One of my favorite rules in the book is this one. It seems not even like a rule, it seems like good advice, that Christmas cookies shall look like Christmas cookies. Even if you don't celebrate Christmas, I'm willing to bet every single person in here could imagine a Christmas cookie. You've seen them. And of course, there are all different kinds. Every single one of you could have a perfect Christmas cookie in your head, and I bet you could all have a different one, and you'd all still be right. What I'm willing to say, though, is that no one has this picture in their head. No one is thinking, like if they serve these for dessert today, they'd be like, what the heck? Why are these edible? Did they run out of budget? What's going on here, right? No one would say, why are they serving us Christmas cookies in July? That seems weird, because they don't look like Christmas cookies, but they are. These are Christmas cookies. And they're not made by a 4-year-old. They were not made in a horrific kitchen blowing up accident. They were made on purpose to look exactly like this. The story goes back a few years. There was a mom. She's preparing a holiday party. She had a list a mile long and about this much time to do it. She had no choice but to delegate. So she turned to her husband and her son. And she said, I need to run to the store. I have some errands to run before people get here. I need you to help me out and make a batch of my Christmas cookies. They're very easy to make. You see them, you see me make them every year. I've written out all the instructions. Just follow along. You'll be fine. She leaves. Husband and son, they're excited. They're empowered because they love Christmas cookies. They're so excited because every year mom makes these cookies. And they come out of the oven, they want to try one. No, those are for the guests. Not fair. They said, well, what can we do about this? This is our chance to change the story, right? What are we going to do? And then one of them had an idea. They said, oh, I know what we can do. What if we make these cookies as disgusting looking as possible? No one will want to eat them. There'll be more for us. This was their plan. So they pulled out the food coloring, started mixing up all these weird colors, pushed aside the normal traditional cookie cutters, pulled out things like jeeps and apple trees and feet and hands, not even mittens, hands. And they started making these cookies as ugly as they could. And just as they finished is when mom walks in. She's like, oh my gosh, these are disgusting. Are you guys idiots? What are you thinking? What's going on here? Well, they were so proud. They told her the entire plan as if she should get them a Medal of Honor. She's like, oh, you guys are idiots. Oh my God. She's freaking out because now she doesn't have time to go buy a new batch, to make a new batch. She's stuck. So she plants herself at the front door as people start to arrive. Before she even says, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, welcome to my home, she says, I did not make those cookies. People are like, hello? What's that about? And so she tells them the story, and they laugh, and then they see the cookies, and they laugh harder. But the best part of the story is later on in the evening, I don't know if someone had too much eggnog or what, someone decided to try one of the cookies. And they were delicious. Everyone else is like, seriously? Those are good? Well, I got to try one. By the end of the night, all the cookies are gone. The original plan of the husband son completely backfired. Somehow, they were allowed to do it again. They said, well, I guess next year we just have to make them uglier. This is several years in. You don't get this good on your first try, right? You got to work up to this. So what's cool is they've been doing this year after year after year, became a family tradition. Eventually they could just stop once a year with cookies. They moved on to cakes. Oh, there we go. Cakes. This guy, that's the son, by the way. That's not the dad, that's the son. That one in the middle, that's a graduation cake. I don't know anyone who's ever gone into a bakery and is like, yep, that'll work. My kid's on the 6-year plan. Let's wrap this up. So here's what I love. I tell this story almost every time I speak, and then people like you take it and run with it. I was speaking at a school district in Wisconsin one time. I was speaking to the staff, and they emailed me, superintendent, a couple months later. He said that one of his teachers had fallen ill, and they were trying to do something creative to help raise money for the medical bills and to create some levity, show their support. So they decided to host an ugly cake auction. They invited the students and families to bake and decorate ugly cakes, brought them in to the school, into the gym, invited the community. He said, whatever money we raise will go to this family. He told me they had 80 cakes that were contributed. They had 800 people show up in the gym, and they raised $15,000. And he sent me pictures of some of these cakes. If that's not a $1,000 cake, I don't know what is, right? And there's this one, and my favorite one right here. Keep looking at it, new things keep popping out, right? It's broccoli, bow tie pasta, bananas. There may or may not be a chicken breast in there somewhere. So here's the question. What sorts of things do you do every holiday, every year, every week, every team meeting, every time you bring on a new employee? What are the things you always do because you've always done them that way? What opportunities are there right in front of you if you're willing to identify some of these rules that don't exist and tinker by trying something a little bit different? I would argue there's a limitless amount of opportunities, things you didn't even realize, things that you would be surprised by. So the last thing I want to talk about, we talked about seeing with new eyes, we talked about tinkering, and I want to talk about, I think all this leads up to this idea of creating a legendary portfolio. Doing work that matters and creating something that you're proud of. As an artist, I have a portfolio. I remember I graduated school. It's like this binder portfolio briefcase thing. You put all your best work in there. And you hope that it's good, right? You hope it stands out. You hope it's different than what other people are doing. And I like to think, what if you had like a life portfolio? What if you had a portfolio and it was all of your greatest hits? Your best adventures, your coolest, biggest accomplishments, even some of your epic fails. If someone was looking at your portfolio, what would they say? Would they be blown away by your courage and your curiosity and your collection of unforgettable memories? Or would they say, oh, this is pretty good. It kind of looks like everybody else's. It's really easy to create a portfolio that looks like everybody else's. Just follow the rules that don't exist. I call that paint by number living. Remember paint by numbers? Everything that's 1, you paint red. Everything that's 2, you paint blue. And at the end, you kind of sort of get something that looks like a piece of art. But it's not. There's no creativity there. There's no risk involved. The thing I would like to express is most people don't even realize it's not that hard to create an amazingly legendary portfolio. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You don't have to go to Disney World to do it. You just have to have some intentionality. I've got this little friend here, Marty. He looks really big on screen, but he's actually kind of small. He's in my pocket here. He's about 1 inch tall. This is Marty. My wife and I have a game that we take turns hiding him on one another. So this is like the mature part of the program I know you've all been waiting for. But how it works is Kim and I, she'll be taking a shower. She reaches for the shampoo bottle. Behind the shampoo bottle is Marty. It's Marty. Yes, Marty, how's it going? So then it's her turn to hide him. I've completely forgotten about it. A couple days go by. I'm pouring myself some Captain Crunch out of the box into the bowl. Marty. And when it's 7 in the morning, you're not expecting, you're like, hey, buddy, how's it going? How's the wife and kids? What's new, right? It's not a big deal, but it adds a little levity to our day. Adds a little whimsy. It's amazing how many times I'm having a rough day, kind of grumpy, and Marty shows up. It's weird how that works. Now, we didn't invent this game. There are probably people out here that play similar versions with friends, families, colleagues. I was in San Diego, California. After one of my talks, a woman comes up to me and she says, you know that game you played? We did the same thing. And I got to tell you, my husband, he was the champion of this game. He was so good at hiding Marty. What did they used Waldo, the Where's Waldo guy with the red and white sweater and the glasses and the hat. She says, my husband was a champion of this game. He was so good. Every time the kids would find him, they'd squeal with delight because Waldo was always in the most unusual, unexpected places. She went on to tell me that her husband had passed away the previous year. We found the cancer 3 months before he died, she said, and he died on Thanksgiving Day. I was like, oh, what do you say to that? Luckily, she just kept talking. She was like, it was about a month later, it was Christmas time, and it was my year to host. I was grateful for that, she said, because it gave me a chance to get my mind off of things. But the problem we ran into is everyone came. All of our family and friends wanted to be there, which was great, but I have a really small house. And so I have all these people jammed in here. Southern California, it's getting hot and stuffy in here. Someone said, we need to open some windows and turn on the ceiling fan, get some air circulating. So we did, she said. And we turned on the ceiling fan, and Waldo came shooting out, hit someone in the forehead, landed in the middle of the table, and they all stared at it. She said that was the last place my husband had hidden Waldo. He got us one more time, she said. And she said, I'm telling you this because, yes, it was emotional at first, but it didn't take long. We figured things out when those tears turned to laughs. And one by one, each of the kids went around the table, and they talked about their favorite place where Dad had hidden Waldo. And they all had a different one. Remember when he hid him in my mashed potatoes? And I love that story because, we spend so much time worried and anxious about the big things. All the stuff that dominates our headlines day in and day out, the big, huge issues facing our country, and it keeps us anxious and worried and nervous. But I've noticed that when we get to the end of our lives and we're on our deathbed and our friends and family have gathered around us, those big things never seem to make the conversation. You know what does? The little things, the little games we played with each other, the inside jokes we shared, the adventures we have with our partners in crime, the portfolio pieces. In the end, it's the portfolio pieces that seem to give us the most valuable, the things we collect along the way that mean the most to us. Now, of course, I'm not saying we not try to make our world better, not try to fix things. I'm just saying we need to be more intentional about creating more of these touch points, more of these portfolio pieces with the people we love, the people we work with, the people we serve. It's not hard. It goes along with my favorite line. My favorite rule to break is, thou shalt not have too much fun at work. And this is a great line from the guys who started the Life is Good t-shirt company. They said, when leaders demand to be taken more seriously, their coworkers tend to take them less seriously. Oh, the laughs will still take place, but they take place behind closed doors, and they divide rather than unite. If any of you have ever seen the television show The Office, all I have to tell you is 2 words: Dwight Schrute. All right, it's a good example of this. One time I had a chance to tour. I was speaking for a college, and they were so excited to show me their renovations that they had done, and they were giving me this tour, and I stumbled across this cubicle, and I noticed that it was the awesome room. And I'm like, whoa, what is the awesome room? Tell me about this. And they said, well, when we renovated everything, we gave the employees the opportunity to name the public spaces, and this became the awesome room. Now, I looked inside, and I got to be honest, it didn't look all that awesome. It looked kind of like just like a regular little meeting room. But then I thought about when they were having talks, and maybe there's an opportunity once in a while where they're like, you know what, we need to have a little a powwow on this. We need to work on this. And they said, I know, Jim, Mary, Susan, go to the awesome room. Figure something awesome out, right? Just add a little whimsy, right? Then this was the dean, by the way, Dean Stewart. He was the dean, and his name was Dean. I'm like, is that how you got this job? Looking at the resume like, whoa, we're looking for a dean. I guess we got one right here. So he's showing me around. He was the leader of this place. And then I stumbled across this bulletin board, and there's pictures on there. And I'm like, what's this? Tell me about this. He said, oh, that's our twins board. Anytime someone comes to work inadvertently dressed like someone else, we take their picture and put it up on the twins board. Simple, silly, right? Now, here's the important thing. This team, this staff, they weren't riding down the hallways with clown noses riding unicycles, all right? They weren't acting ridiculous or crazy, but there was a sense of camaraderie. There was a sense that these people liked working together, had fun with each other, and got a lot done. You could just feel the energy there. These women heard me speak, and they heard me talk about ugly cookies, right? And so when one of their coworkers was transferred to a different place, so that she was leaving their state and going somewhere else, they volunteered to do the going away cake. And they created this ridiculously awesome going away cake that included all kinds of holidays and animals, and there was angel food cake and chocolate cake and vanilla cake. They tried to incorporate all these different pieces. It was one ugly cake, right? This was the guest of honor. Now, we have all been in those situations where someone retires, someone transfers, and we get cake. And you know what the cake usually looks like, right? It's that sad sheet cake, white frosting, yellow, like wilty roses, and blue cursive is like, best wishes, John. Good luck. Boring, right? Now, it's cake, right? So that's good. But this is memorable. This is breaking a rule that doesn't exist, right? So a couple other ideas for you. This one's a good one for families. And if you have kids, grandkids, it's called Pajama Ron. What you do is you put your kids to bed. 15 or 20 minutes after they've been in bed, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, you go into the kitchen. Get pots and pans and wooden spoons. Creep down the hallway to the bedroom. Shh. Open the door, turn on the lights, start banging the pots and pans, yelling, Pajama Ron, Pajama Ron, Pajama Ron. Everyone has to get up out of bed, jumps into the car, still in their pajamas, and you go to the local ice cream place. It's a Pajama Ron. People with young children are usually like, wait, what? Feel like you just told me to wake my kids up after I spent 3 hours putting them down. The heck? I know, I have little kids. I'm not saying do it every night, once a year, once a decade. It's fine. I like to recommend doing it on a school night, which people get mad about that. Oh, school night, that's ridiculous. That's adultitis talking, right? Again, it doesn't have to be all the time. And if you want, what you can do is you can keep it a total surprise. Just kind of keep the urgency to it, but don't tell them where they're going. It can be fun for you, right? Just imagine them. They were in bed minding their own business, and you're like, come on, let's go, guys. Let's go. We got to get in the car. No time to get changed. We got to get in. And they're like, oh, my gosh, what's happening? They're freaking out, right? They're like, is this like an emergency? And you don't say anything. You just drive along with that look in your eye like you don't even care anymore, right? That faraway look that parents get sometimes. And they're in the back seat. They're like, ah. They start confessing things you didn't even know that they did. I'm sorry, I'll clean my room tomorrow, I'll do anything. And you get to the ice cream place, what have you done? You've created one heck of a portfolio piece. One they may not psychologically recover from, but that's up to you. Whoops. This one, Spatula City. Get out all of the unusual kitchen utensils. Spaghetti forks, whisks, salad tongs, soup ladles, you name it. Put it all on the table. Everyone around the table then has to go around and choose one of the utensils, and then everyone has to eat their entire dinner with just that utensil. Does not cost any money, and I'm telling you, the pictures are priceless, all right? Possibly my most favorite one of all is called Sticky Cup. All you do is get an empty cup from a fast food place or a coffee shop, tape it to the top of your car, and go for a drive. You'll get some memories out of this, let me tell you. There will be people, some people won't notice, but the people you did, you need to be prepared because you just created a national emergency for them. They are freaking out. They're like, Fred, get up there. We got to tell them they have Taco Bell in their car. And they're gesturing, they're blaring, they're, Taco Bell, Taco Bell. They were just going to go to the grocery store and they're driving to Miami to follow you now. They have to tell that you have Taco Bell in your car. And you ignore them, of course. You just act like nothing's wrong. But you'll eventually get to a stoplight where they're right next to you and they're blaring the horn, Taco Bell, Taco Bell. They're freaking out. Just kind of turn and smile and wave and just keep driving. Just keep driving. I'm telling you, there's no easier or cheaper way to have fun in any economy than Sticky Cup. All right? All right. So you guys remember Cracker Jacks? Yes. What's the best part? The prize. Who said peanuts? That's a rule that doesn't exist, right? Thou shalt not love the peanuts in Cracker Jacks. All right, the free prize, I always like to give away a free prize whenever I speak. What I wanted to give away today was one of my books. I had mentioned it a few times, thought it would be kind of cool. So it's a copy of Penguins Can't Fly. The weird thing that kind of throws people off is because it's got fun illustrations in it, which makes sense because I'm an artist, right? But it makes people think it's a children's book, and it's not. It's a book for adults. Not that kind, ma'am. Sorry. It's for grown-ups, right? It covers these rules that don't exist. Okay, so who am I going to give this to? Who I'm going to give this to is if you reach under the front bottom of your chair and see if there's something taped to it. It's not the do not remove this label under penalty of law. Don't do that. It's a three-dimensional object. If you see it, hold it up. It might be by someone. Is it? I don't think that's it. What is it? No. Oh, there it is. Sorry. What do you have there, sir? It's Marty, right? Yes, Marty the penguin. He was hiding out there the whole time. Come on up. So you get to keep Marty, and you get to have the book. I'd also like to point out that they have a whole bunch of books. Here you go, sir. Congratulations. They have a whole bunch of my books and art available at the National Community Service booth. Some of you probably have already seen it. It's got a bunch of prints and then some of the Penguins Can't Fly books. So I'd invite you to check that out if you're interested in any of that. Also, what's next? All right, well, you guys got some amazing things to continue, right? This is an amazing conference. Sometimes it's just cool to be around people who get it, who get what you do, and you can kind of not only learn things from, but vent and commiserate. There's some value in that, right? But when this conference is over, Adultitis is going to be waiting for us, back in our real lives, regular things. So what I like to do is I always like to invite people to jump aboard our merry band of Adultitis fighters. We have a little weekly message that I send out once a week. I have a couple free ebooks that I have available if anyone's interested. One is about the 15 of our best adultitis antidotes. One of them is called Cupid versus Adultitis, which is how do you bring the fun back into your relationship. And then there's another one called Not a Rule, which is on business, how to find some of these rules in our own businesses and our lives to be better. So those are all free. All you have to do is go to escapeadulthood.com. They're on the little dessert cards. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see a thing that pops up. I'd love to have you be a part of it. We have about 15,000 people all over the world that are fighting adultitis together, and it's totally free, and these ebooks are free if you sign up, so I'd love to have you. Finally, finish this sentence for me. This is what I want you to be thinking about going through the rest of this conference is, what was one reminder I most needed to hear today? And then what's the most logical next step for me to take? It was one thing. That's the thing, is we get so overwhelmed with so many different things we could do at a conference like this that we don't do any of it because it's too much. Just pick one thing. And then what's the most logical next step to take? I think what our goal is, we may not all call it the same thing, but we want to be awesome. We want our country to be awesome. We want our places of work to be awesome. We want our families to be awesome, our relationships to be awesome. How do you do that? I think this picture sums it up pretty well. Someone sent me this picture a while ago, and I think that the parents who let their daughter go to the princess party dressed as the Dark Knight, I think they're on the right track. Anytime we can teach our kids that they don't have to do the same thing as everyone else is a good thing. But you know what? Anytime we can internalize that message ourselves is even better. I talked about living a paint-by-number life. It is very easy to do. Just do what you've always been told, do what you've always done, going through the motions, right? I don't think that's what we're here for. And here's the deal. They don't hang paint-by-numbers in the Louvre. They just don't. And I know that every single one of us has a different risk profile, different willingness to get out there. That's fine. I'm just telling you, every once in a while, you got to pull out the crayon and go crazy. So I promise you that if you do this, if you think back to when you were 5 years old, when you believed that you were an artist, you were right. And if you practice seeing with new eyes, practice tinkering, trying new things, practice looking for those rules that don't exist, and being willing to tweak them once in a while, all in the name of creating an amazingly legendary portfolio. I promise you that when you get to the end of your life and you're looking back on it, you will say, holy guacamole, that was awesome. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.
We can be heroes, just for one day.
Thank you, Jason. I think you may have diagnosed a few of us in the audience, and you've given us a lot to think about. As Jason mentioned, his books and art collections are available for purchase at the National Community Service booth in the exhibit hall. All sales proceeds go towards AGA's National Community Fund, so for a good cause. Now we'll break and continue our program into the concurrent sessions offered this afternoon. Continue to enjoy, and I'll see you at the coffee break at 3:20 in the exhibit hall, sponsored by MasterCard. Have a great day.